Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Inside Out, coming to you from our ZPC News 24 channel, our ZPC News online Facebook page, as well as our ZPC News TV channel. I am Yvonne Mokondani. Now, getting into the business of the day today, we start off with stories that made the headlines since 2018. First one. Young woman guns down boyfriend, shoots herself dead is a newspaper headline of June 29, 2018, where an unidentified woman allegedly gunned down her boyfriend before shooting herself at a room at the National Railways of Zimbabwe single quarters at Railton in Bulawayo. Another one. Guards shoots lover, sister, self. In another headline on February 14, 2015, where an aggrieved security guard gunned down his lover and sister before turning the gun on himself in unclear circumstances at Mtinkulu Farm adjacent to Rydal Ridge Park residential area in Harare. Another headline again, Chipinge man on the run after shooting lover 4 times, appeared in the media on the 27th of December 2021, and the story says a 38-year-old man from Chipinge is on the run after allegedly shot and injured his girlfriend. So many more crimes were reported to the media, but what stands out is the rate at which firearms are being used when misunderstandings occur, particularly in love relationships. That's why on Inside Out today we're joined by ZRP National Spokesperson, Assistant Commissioner Paul Nyati. We also have a social media influencer, Fadai Mutwira, as well as Elder Machando from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I must thank you all for having joined us on this program today.
Thank you.
We got quite a backlash from Twitter over our sensational topic, love and guns, but I'll direct my first question to you, Assistant Commissioner. The question of love and guns. Futhi dziri kumbobvepi munyika muma relationships kwese kwadziri kushandiswa nevanhu?
Yvonne, the law in Zimbabwe is very clear. Specifically the Firearms Act, which clearly specifies, which clearly outlines how one should possess, how one should own a firearm in Zimbabwe. So basically what it entails, anyone who wants to own a firearm, who wants to possess a firearm legally, not illegal, he has to go through a process. And this process is you have to justify why you need a firearm. And one of the reasons which are normally given by people is that one, I am into crop protection. I'm a big farmer. I push high volumes in terms of farming. There are also miners. People are engaged in mining, say for instance gold. Then there are some security companies involved in cash in transit, where they are, carrying money from one point to another. And normally they are contracted by financial institutions or some supermarkets. Then you have some business people who say, I want to be secure at my home. Then they apply for a firearm and they are authorized to own a firearm. So basically, these are the legal procedures by which one can acquire a firearm. But however, before one is authorized, they have to go through a vetting process. And the vetting process, we now need to know somebody's mental capacity. We also need to check where the firearm will be stored. Normally we call it a gun cabinet. If the firearm is to be kept at home. If it's a common premises, we also need to inspect the common premises. And also, a firearm which is licensed, which is authorized for use in a mine premises should not be carried home. A firearm which is used for crop protection should not be taken home. A firearm which is kept at home needs a gun cabinet. So these are the requirements, these are the procedures which prospective firearm owners should go through. So definitely it's not automatic that if Yvonne or Fadzai applies for a firearm license or authority, he or she will get one. No. We need to verify.
Having said all that and having laid out all the procedures and the requirements, why are we seeing an increase in the use of guns in the country these days, particularly in relationships or whenever there's an altercation? We hear so and so has shot so and so. Where are they getting those guns from? Who is licensing them? Are those procedures being followed?
Certainly, the procedures are being followed. But one disturbing trend which we have observed in our country, the misuse of firearms. A relative dies who was legally authorized to own a firearm. The relative, police, because this is clearly outlined firearms that if a person passes on or a person dies, if the person was in possession of a firearm, that firearm must be surrendered to the police for the necessary procedures to be followed. But you end up having situations where some firearms are being taken by children, being used to commit a crime. You also have people who are not securing their firearms properly, like what happened over the weekend. We had two cases where this security guard was employed in a mine and he was in possession of firearm in Berengo. In the process, he decided to go to the home of the employer carrying this firearm. Along the way, he was attacked by criminals. They took away the firearm. And obviously, this firearm will be used to commit a crime. Then we also had a businessman who was at home with his family, who was approached by criminals. They attacked the businessman and took away a pistol. And again, this pistol will be used to commit a crime, which include robbery cases. So definitely, there are cases of misuse of firearms in our country, where people are not securing their firearms. We have had cases of people, taking a firearm just to scare relatives at a family gathering. You have people carrying a firearm to a supermarket. Just imagine. But you are not licensed to carry a firearm into the supermarket. You have people carrying a firearm into a pub. We've arrested some people. Just imagine carrying a firearm into a pub, then you want to scare away other patrons. So these are some of the issues which are contributing to cases of firearms being used for purposes which they are not intended for or which they are not licensed for. Then we also have had.
I'll come back to you, Ascom. We've understood that part on firearms. Now I want to hear from you, Elder. We've heard a lot of talk about toxic relationships. If one of them toxic relationship, toxic relationship. What is a toxic relationship? What defines it?
Toxic relationship relationship ine servant to master. Kana tichiti servant to master relationship ndeyekuti umwe ndimambo, umwe inhapwa. Basically, in a relationship, people are supposed to be equal. The lady and the gentleman, they are supposed to be equal. But kana umwe amushandi mukati merelationship iyi, dambudziko rinonetsa nderekuti anodzvinyirirwa either side. Sekudai izvi kuti munhu anenge ari murelationship iyoyo, unogara uchiudzwa haufunge, you are lazy, why usiri kugeza, sei usingatsvage basa, I don't like the way you dress. By the end of the day, you lose your individuality. You no longer enjoy the relationship, but it may be giving you my incentives. You may be getting $1 there and what have you. But whatever you are putting in and whatever you are getting out, as this school will run. These toxic relationships dzinozobuditsa masymptoms ekuti, like for example, vanhu vazorwa, vanhu vazokandana panze, vanhu vazopfurana nepfuti. This is not what defines a toxic relationship, but these are the results of a toxic relationship. Relationships ari kusiyirwa nemunhu pamusana pekuti ari kufunga kuti kukandirwa bhonzo sembwa kudiwa. Nyamba uri honzi kana kwadoka ozohukura. So kana munhu wazopedza kuhukura manheru, waseva purpose yawaukavinga murelationship, but someone else is running you and iwewe uri kuluza your individuality. This is a toxic relationship.
Okay. Fadzi, Elder has tried explaining to us what a toxic relationship is. You are a social media influencer. You have a platform on Twitter where you moderate between your followers and those who come to you seeking relationship advice. How helpful is your platform? And have you come across these toxic relationships? How do you define them? And how are you helping people in these kind of relationships?
Well, yeah, I have come across people who are in a toxic relationship. There are a lot of cases of people who are in a toxic relationship. I myself was once in a toxic relationship.
Okay.
You will know because you are in one, but it's very difficult to let it go. And my page is very helpful I try to help people to deal with their relationship problems and to try and leave toxic relationships. Yeah, because something toxic, a relationship that is toxic, that will affect your mental health or your physical health or something like that. Yeah.
So what's your take on this kind of relationships and anyone who is in such?
Well, well, I think most people stay in toxic relationships because of I don't know, the society that judges people on stereotypes. You're not in a relationship. You're at this certain time, at this certain age. You're 20 whatever. You're 20 whatever. You need to be in a relationship and settle with someone. So some people end up staying in a toxic relationship so that they can, you know, try to fit in. Yeah. So I think it's very difficult to leave a toxic relationship. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as people say. That you should leave it. You should do this. You should do that. It's not that easy. So I try to help people with my page to solve those issues. Yeah.
Ascom, I understand from the police that you have a department dealing with gender-based violence cases, and people come to you obviously with different issues. At what stage should probably one leave a toxic relationship?
In terms of the law, yes, the Zimbabwe Public Police have got a victim-friendly unit, and this victim-friendly unit works together with the other stakeholders, who include the courts, people like FADZAI, some civic organizations. And basically, the whole idea in coming up with these counseling facilities is not to break relationships, is to assist people to make a decision which they can own, to make a decision which they feel that this decision is the best which they have decided to take. So basically, that's the whole idea between counseling and proffering advice. And in most of the situations, when police come in, they encourage people to take ownership of their decision. They encourage people to also shun from committing crime while at least they are having disputes. This is the basis of counseling, which is done by the Zimbabwe Public Police, various sections, which include the victim-friendly unit and others.
Okay, I want to go back to the issue of guns because there's an issue that we want to get to. Earlier on, you mentioned the requirements for someone to own a gun. We want to understand, is there any training for those people who come to you requiring firearms? Do they get trained on how to handle them, how to use guns, or is it just a matter of giving licenses to whoever you see fit, business people, miners, those in agriculture?
No, the law is very clear. Before one is authorized, before one is licensed to own or possess a firearm, they have to indicate that they have gone through a training process. And they are authorized gun clubs in the country where somebody can take membership and they go through the required processes. That's why I'm saying, after realizing the misuse of firearms in our country, where you find that people, they now use firearms to settle scores in relationships, the Zimbabwe Republic Police now requires one to indicate that their mental capacity is sound. Their mental capacity does not make them misuse, or at the end of the day have challenges where they will end up shooting their partners, like what happened over the last weekend. And what it entails, we also need experts to come on board, psychologists to come on board and assist during the application process to indicate that this person indeed can be authorized to own a firearm or not. But one of the challenges which I alluded to earlier on is the challenge of people hiring firearms, the challenge of people trying to use devious means.
Where are they hiring these firearms from? From other individuals with guns? Or?
Certainly. With this specific reference to what happened over the weekend, this guy was not licensed to own a firearm, was not authorized to own a firearm. And we are now in the process of trying to find out, how did he come to be in possession of a firearm? Who gave him the firearm? Is it a family member? Is it a friend? Or was the firearm hired from a certain criminal? So these are some of the questions which we are trying to answer now. So one of the issues which I want to appeal to Zimbabweans, please do not try to hire a firearm when you are not supposed to be owning that firearm, when you are not authorized, when you are not licensed, and do not try to settle scores using firearms. Please, let's go for counseling. We have got church leaders here, we have got social media influencers, we have got psychologists in our country. We can proffer counseling service so that at the end of the day, yes, we have differences, but we'll try to resolve our differences in a peaceful manner.
Elder, Assistant Commissioner Nyati said, as the Zimbabwe Republic Police, they do not advocate for people to break up. In as much as they're a victim-friendly unit, if whoever goes to them seeking advice, all they can do is try and help those people solve their issues amicably. But I want to hear from you as the church. Do we have a certain point where we say, you know what, if you're in a toxic relationship, this is when you should leave?
Yes, isusu as a church takaona kuti dambudziko guru riripo is where people are forced to stay in a relationship to maintain status. Some relationships must not survive. They must be terminated.
What kind of relationships are those?
All toxic relationships. All toxic relationships are abusive relationships. And you find 9 times out of 10, people are in abusive relationships. And they have a reason to maintain that relationship, believing people are going to change, believing they are going to knock sense into someone's head. Unfortunately, what they do not realize is when you want to change someone so that he may be your friend forever, that automatically means she or he is no longer surviving. You have created a robot and you are now in love with the robot. So we encourage relationships that are not functional at whatever level must be terminated.
Okay, now I want to find out the issue of relationships. I'm a woman, I'm in a relationship with a guy, and ndikumutengera my gifts, ndine mari yangu yandikumupa. Am I entitled to owning that guy? And if that guy is doing the same for me, is he entitled to owning me?
Toda kuti ndi issue iyi saelder. Ndichakupai the ideal. Ndokupai mararamiro ari kuita vanhu. The ideal was when a man get married, anochengeta mukadzi. And every woman akatosikwa naturally ane a craving of being taken care of. Whether ari anoshanda kana kuti haashandi, anoda kuchengetwa. Nokuti ukatengerwa mota nhasi nekambani yako, it does not exclude your husband from buying you a vehicle. Why? Because it's your husband. Nekuda kwekudaro manje, this zvaifanirwa kuitika at a specific level of a relationship where we are married. But unfortunately vanhu vakazviramba vakati ndatizviisei pamalevels ese. Taakuda kuchidzoka kumethod yakanzi nevanhu tinoda. Ndeyekuti kana uchidanana nemusikana kana kuti uchidanana nemukomana ukamutengera present, hauzi kutenga mashares. Ungori customer okay yatenga. Saka usatarisire kuti pachapuwa vanhu madividends newe zita rako rinenge riripo. Imi munotendwa sema-custom, mogumira ipapo, asi pavaridzi vema-directors vachazopiwa ma-dividends. Saka kana munhu uchipa munhu present, chatino-encourage ndechekuti ipa munhu present yauri prepared to part with. Zvekuti nyangwe akakudza kuti handichakuda, iwewe unenge uri happy, umwe ari happy. And hazvina kutanga nesu. Mukafamba mumastreet mudzimba zhinji dzamunoona, dzimwe dzakatotengwa nana baba vedu vadyiwa nemagirlfriend. Havana kumbodzokera ikoko vachiti zvandibve pano. Vakazviziva kuti kana ukabhadhara mari yekupinda mubhora, you don't own the match. Ukangopinda mubhora ivo vanongotamba vakatsikana vakambomira, ivo chakungomirira kuti 90 minutes dzitese dzipere uende kumba. Saka hakuna kana munhu wapa munhu mari, kana munhu wapa munhu gift, hazvireve kuti decision yachaita iri based on how much you have invested. Love haizi business riri kuinvestwa in. Ndekuti kana ndapa munhu mari ndichakohwa, unogona kuzokohwerwa nevamwe. Saka tinoda kubalansisa nyaya iyoyo, vakomana vazvizive kuti izvo when you give a woman something, she owes you nothing.
Saka Elder, kana ndiri kukunzwisai muri kuti pane vanofudza, pane vanokama.
Chokwadi ndo chokwadi chinoraramika chekuti kana iwewe neni tikadanana, tadanana unenge uchiasesa inini kuti will I be a good husband? You are not looking for a sponsor. In terms of sponsorship, you are happy. Kuti ndinosponsor zvakanaka. Asi kana wakuzodawo munhu wogara naye kumba anogarika naye, unotsvaga anogarika naye. Saka dambudziko riri kunetsa mumarelationship mazhinji, vari kufunga kuti the money muscle is going to buy love. It does not work like that. Money muscle is going to get me where I want. Ndakapfeka hembe dzakanaka. Kuitira kuti kana ndakunotsvaga murume wekuroorwa naye, ndinoenda ndiri presentable. Saka zvakwauri iwewe manje kumeka sure kuti wamake a decision yekuti kana ndiri kutsvaga munhu anonzwisisa where we are going and where we are coming from. Hatigone kuti titi ende ndinodzokorora. Hatigone kuti titi ndadyiwa nemunhu mari yakawanda, saka munhu anokodzera kufa. Why? Pamusana pekuti hakuna munhu anodyiwa mari yakawanda. Kudanana kune malevels. Sekungorarama kwatinoita, kune vamwe takakurira kugeto, vamwe vanenge vachigara kumusha, vamwe vari kugara musquatter camp, vamwe vari kugara mumasabhabhu. Maexpenses anosiyana. Saka kana unaona kuti unoda kuspenda less, unoendawo palevel unotsvaga kuti level yamunoda ndeipi, so that you are very comfortable with what you part with. But the honest truth ndeyekuti izvo financing a relationship does not buy you ownership.
Okay. The issue of financing relationships, my gifts. We've seen a lot of these issues on your platform where a guy or a lady comes and says, look, Patty, ndakaenda munhu chikoro, ndakachengeta vanin'ina vake, ndakaita say, remember we were talking about this earlier on. You have a lot of these issues. How are you dealing with them, and what's your perspective regarding the issue of gifts and relationships? Is there anyone who owns anybody, or how does it work?
Well, I do agree with Elder.
Okay.
People think kuti ukapa munhu mari ato munhu wako, hauna umuroora munhu.
Okay.
Maybe unogona kuzivikanwa mbako, but it doesn't guarantee you kuti muchazoroorana. Like giving someone magisi and giving someone money doesn't guarantee you loyalty. Munhu can change. In my own view is munhu can change. Apana munhu anonzi achange. And kutraya kugara nemunhu tuzochinja munhu, it doesn't work like that. In trying to give someone money so that you can cover up or you can keep that person close, it doesn't guarantee you kuti mucharoorana or the loyalty achaipleasure to you. So yeah, it's very difficult out there, and yeah.
But what do we say? Pamusoro pevanhu vaiveve kuti inini I'm in a relationship with a guy or with you or with whoever. Ndatosvika papoint yekuona kuti munhu uyu handichamudu, but ndikuramba ndichitora zvinhu zvake, ndichizvidya, ndichingozvishandisa chete. My instances akadaro iwayo anofamba sei? Whether musikana ari kudya mari yemukomana wasingadi kana mukomana ari kudya mari yemusikana wasisana.
You see, the issue iri panapa ndeyekuti izvo, remember tambotaura nenyaya yekuti zviri ideal, this thing was not supposed to be commercialized. Vanhu vakacommercializa ndevekuti akauya akati izvo, alright, inini ndiri kukuda fadzi. Ndichikuda fadzi ndichakupa 1000. 1000 yauri kundipa. Uri kundipa 1000 yekuti iri kukava. It's like watenga maservices angu. Haugone kuzoakombea anything else. So paunoramba uchidzoka kwandiri, uri kubhadhara for the service. You need to be clear about that.
Okay.
Why I am saying this? Ndeyekuti tikada kufamba tichitsvaga kuti ari right neari wrong ndiani, tinorasika. Asi munhu ari kuramba achipinza ruoko rwake muhomwe, achiburitsa mari achikanda uko, asingaread the script, ane problem.
Okay.
Because in a relationship everyone has to be present.
Yeah, true.
Saka haugone kuzoti ndakabirwa mari when you were there. So vakomana havagone kubuda vachiti izvo, musikana yangadai akanditi. Hatisi kuti zviri wrong kana kuti zviri right, because matsotsi tichave nawo nguva dzese. Saka anobirwa ndiye anochengeta chikwama. Isi tisina zvikwama tinoziva kuti handibirwe, nyangwe ndikandifamba mumbare ndongofamba, nyangwe ndikandifamba midnight ndinongofamba, because ndoziva kuti handina chandichaita sei, chandichabirwa. So what we need to kuti zvive clear ku young people out there ndezvekuti ukasavhura ako maziso, vanhu vacharamba vachidya because vane nzara.
Okay. Coming to your Assistant Commissioner Nyati, the latest incident that we had over the weekend of a guy who allegedly shot his girlfriend. We hear that this guy had a pending case, a GBV case. So we want to find out from you: are there any instances where one has a GBV case, right? Obviously, this person is violent. This person owns a firearm. Yes, you said he wasn't licensed, but let's look at those who are licensed. One is a GBV case pending before the courts. Is that firearm confiscated? The mental state of that person evaluated for that person to then be given his firearm back? How does it work in those instances?
Yvonne, normally when partners have got disagreements and they engage in physical violence, and a report is made to the police, and it is clearly revealed that this person is in possession of a firearm and is of violent tendencies, normally the law requires that the police have to withdraw that firearm. And I want to encourage the public, please report where you have got partners who are violent or who exhibit violent tendencies and they are licensed to own firearms. Please report so that we can withdraw those firearms. I currently have a case where a certain old man, around 80 years old, is now having health challenges, which include memory lapses. And there's a family, they've come forward to the police and said, police, can you assist us? Can you withdraw the firearm from this old man? Because when we have discussions at home, he normally says, I'll shoot somebody, as a way of trying to silence family members. And we've had no option but to withdraw the firearm from him. So definitely the law requires the police to withdraw firearms.
All right. The mental state. I want to understand that. Is it evaluated of that person, whoever is a GBV case pending before the courts and owns a firearm? Do we have a certain department or a certain place where these people's mental capacity is evaluated before they are given their firearms back in instances where these firearms have been confiscated?
The police has got a healthy services directorate where we now need people who apply for firearm licenses to be checked their mental capacity. Why have we done that? Because we've realized that we have cases of passion where people are using firearms to settle scores. Take for instance, in the year 2020 to the year 2021, from January to July, we had 12 cases of murder involving, crimes of passion, where lovers killed each other, and mostly through firearms. And this year, from January to July, we've had again 12 cases, and where 11 women were shot dead by their partners, and one man was shot dead by his partner. Okay. So we find that this is just half of the year. What is going to happen when we reach December? It's a cause for concern. So what it shows that we certainly need people to come forward. Do not suffer in silence. Do not be hoodwinked. Somebody beats you today, is in possession of firearm. He comes tomorrow with a watch. He comes, the next day with the $10,000, or he promises you the moon and says, no, do not report or withdraw the case. No. Once a crime has been committed, allow the due process of the law to be followed. And above all, if the person is, exhibiting mental challenges, report so that these firearms can be legally withdrawn for the safety of you and also other members of the society.
But the scary figures they're coming through from the police. From your experience, can we say men or women are in a position where they can tell whether or not a relationship is turning fatal, for them to actually leave? Or are there any signs? And if they're there, are people able to tell?
Well, relationship ichingotanga or maybe my early stages, you can tell kuti munhu maybe is a potential abuser or she's a potential abuser. You can tell, but maybe because of what you'll be getting from that relationship, unenge usingade kusiya that toxic relationship, because that would be a toxic relationship. It will be affecting your physical and your mental health. So people can see signs, kuti they're red flags, someone wangu, but they don't want to let go because some people they'll be thinking of, let's say, kana ndazomusiya ndozoita sei, I can't live without this person because I've been living with this person maybe for some time and stuff like that. So there are a lot of people who are in toxic relationships, and some of them they know, some of them they've seen signs kuti munhu wangu ari toxic and stuff like that, but they can't leave that person. But what I suggest is kuti munhu ukaziva ukaona signs ekuti this is a toxic relationship or a toxic person, you have to leave, because at the end of the day anosafa ndiwe as well, or mese muri too. Yeah.
Elder, going back to the issue yatambo discuss na assistant commissioner yakaitika pa weekend yemusikana ari kunzi akapfurwa nemunhu waifambidzana naye. Pane mameseji atakaona pasocial media ari kunzi ndeye musikana uyu achitsiurwa nemumwe wake kuti ko wadii, waita sei, wabuda. Akati handikwanise kuti ndibude nekuti ndiye ari kutisapota financially, hatina hedu umbo wakazara kuti mamessages aya ndemashuwa, but tichingoshanda nezvinhu zvakadaro, can we then say kuti vasikana kana kuti vakomana mazuva ano vari mumarelationship not because of mari but because of zvavari kubenefita, be it financially or whatever, from munhu anenge achidanana naye?
Yes, tikada kutora iri blanket yekuti vasikana kana kuti vakomana tinenge tinogona kuve wrong pamusana pekuti kune vamwe vane marelationships ari objective and ari straightforward. Kwozoitawo kune vamwe vanofanirwa kuita izvozvo, vanotozikanwa kunzi ndo basa ravo rekurarama nemari dzeujarijari, variko ivavo. Saka dambudziko riri kuitika nderekuti vakomana vamwe vane a good intention vari kunotora vanhu parwrong bus stop vari kuenda kusiriko, then vapedza kutora parwrong bus stop vofamba vachiti vasikana vese ndo zvavari, which is not correct for either side. But zvatiri kuona iye zvino izvi zviri kupromotwa nevanhu mumagrupu nemese, vari kutora sezvinonzi kana ukadanana nemukomana anofanirwa kukusapota. Kana achinge akusapota then zvinoratidza kuti kana akuroora zvichafamba. So vanhu vasiri empowered manje, pandiri kutaura nenyaya empowerment handireve nyaya yehomwe, ndotaura empowered mumusoro, vanorarama upenyu nemaborrowed thoughts ekuti vakaudzwa nevanhu kuti izvo mukomana anokuchengeta, mukomana anokuvakira imba, munhu achakuitira zvakati. So when they are getting into this, vari kupinda muri mubusiness, kwaari kusiyana nemunhu ibusiness rabroka. Kuna umwe munhu ari kuona ari kuti izvo no irelationship, but there is no relationship here, ibusiness, until uyu ari kutransacta naye abroka oro awana replacement, ndo paanozoita izvozvo. Saka challenge yatinayo ndeyekuti we need to empower our girls, kuva empower kutangira mumusoro tichizobuda kunze, kuti vazive kuti they can live without men, and they cannot cheapen themselves to the extent yekuti they can be ordered to do anything for money. Iwo mutemo wemari usina kunzi inowanikwa nevarume chete, mari inowanikwa nemunhu wese, ende kwainowanikwa kunotenderwa vanhu vese. Saka for our ladies to be empowered, haizi nyaya yekungofamba tichiblema varume, inyaya yekuti munhu anofanirwa kungomirawo agone kuti no, agone kuti kana pachidiwa mari yedrink ndine yangu. If you want to take me out, I can afford to buy. You are not taking me out because I am desperate. So it's not all women vakadaro, but kuvariko vakadaro vari kuramba kuita chipfambi full time, vari mubracket ripi, vari mubracket iroro. Saka asi problem iri kuzonetsawo vakomana, vari kuda kuti pfambi ivhare business, iconcentrate necustomer one. Hazvizoiti manje, because the more walk-ins you have, the more money you make. Saka haugone kuvhara business rako zvachose. But we cannot use these to rate every relationship and every woman.
Okay, pane nyaya yasimudzwa apa, pane munhu ari kutaura kuti anzona inini when I'm in a relationship as a woman ndiri kuzvitarisa from a perspective yeBible kuti iwe Adam uchariritira Eve. Saka inini nango ndine murume wangu ndichiendawo basi, munhu iye ari kutaura kuti hanzi mari yacho ndeyangu, iye ngandichengete because ndo zvaakanzi naKristu aiti.
Principle yekuroorana nekuchengetana irresponsibility yemurume mumba, whether mukadzi ane mari yakawanda kana kuti ane shoma. Mari yemukadzi inouya kuzobetsera, ndokunge wamuwana achida kubetsera. But the principle of life ndeyekuti murudzi wemba nemunhu ari responsible murume. Saka mari yemukadzi haifanirwi kutombotsvukisirwa maziso, haifanirwi kutombobvunzwa, imari iri kuuya kuzobetsera. Zvakuzoenda nechibvumirano chenyu chamunenge mazoita mumba menyu, how you run your finances. But to all men out there, varume vanofanirwa kuziva chinhu ichi, havafanirwe kumirira mari yemukadzi kunyange ari iye anotambira yakawanda. Ende havafanirwe kumirira kuchengetwa nemukadzi oro kudivhaidha kuti iwe unoita magrosari, indi unoita zvakati, indakaita zvangu. No, kana waroora munhu, you have taken over responsibility yese. So by the end of the day akapiwa duty rekuita till the garden ndiAdam. Ukono mukadzi atongobata badza kubatsira, ende hauna kuzomubvunza makuseni kuti ko muri kupita akuda kuenda kumunda pamusana pekuti ari kubatsira. Handisi kuti vakadzi vasabatsire varume vavo, asi ndiri kuti izvo munhu ari kubatsira anonetera paanoda.
Hanzi munhu ari kubatsira anonetera paanoda. And we also want to understand something, the issue of relationships. Are they transactional? Are relationships transactional, or is it purely love?
Well, I think my relationships are different too these days. Inini I think it's my relationships anofanira ari vanhu vari kudanana. But most people these days vari kuinvesta murelationships, like zvambotaura naElda unotenga zvinhu zvachapiwa madividends. But most people that are investing in relationships are kuinvesta kuti inini ndapa musikana wangu mari, so anofanira kudanana neni ndiri ndega, ato munhu wangu, haachafanira kuita mumwe munhu. That's how they view these relationships. But I think kuti anofanira kunge ari evanhu too vari kudanana, vanodanana, and it's supposed to be like that. And kuinvesta in munhu, you'll be disappointed. You should just leave room for disappointment, because munhu nyama, you know, anozongoita zvaanenge ari kunzwa kuda iye. Unogona kumupa mari yese yauinayo and invest in that person, but at the end of the day any decision yekuita ada kunge inewe, ada kunge asina iwewe. It's bad.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Assistant Commissioner, there's something that I want to understand from you. Muma communities atinogara, you know, sometimes panogona kuitika maraids, kuti pamba pari kufungidzirwa kuti pari kutengeswa madrugs, and then the police come woita raids, nenguva votowana madrugs ayaya. When it comes to firearms, do we have such operations in place? Wokuti togona kuenda kana paZBC totombosvika tichikusechei tonoti mune pfuti here kana panzvimbo panoshandira vanhu vakawanda. What are we doing in our society as the police to make sure kuti zveshuwa vanhu vane pfuti vari licensed, nekuti pfuti dzinenge dziri kuwanda?
Yeah, Yvonne, you have raised something which is very important, which I also want to remind the public. In terms of the Firearms Act, when normally a person changes his address of residence, where the firearm is supposed to be kept, or area of business, scope of business, they are required in terms of the law to notify the police. Why? So that the verifications, the checkings which are done regularly by the police, we don't lose a track. Okay. And I want to urge Zimbabweans, just watch the space. Something is coming. I don't want to preempt what the government is planning, but something is coming where we will certainly do something about firearm ownership in the country. And I also want to urge Zimbabweans to report people who are jumping our borders, the country's points of entry and exit. Like what I said, we know Yesterday we arrested, last month, a 28-year-old man was coming to the country with a firearm, jumping the border, smuggling this firearm. And guess what? He had killed 2 people from the neighboring countries and robbed them of their valuables, a man and his wife, and was now running away from facing the due consequences of the law. So definitely something is being done by the government, and they will be coming back to Zimbabweans to tell them about this something, but watch this space.
Okay. Elder, it's unfortunate that we've run out of time yet with a topic that we must talk about extensively. Mashokenyo pedzisira to the people of Zimbabwe, men and women who are in relationships and those who are not in relationships. Shamungada kuvaudza pertaining violence, nyaya dzekuchengetana and how to handle relationships.
Chatoda kutaurira ndechekuti pane zvinhu zviviri. Chekutanga ndechekuti kuvana vangu vageroko, marelationships kana kuti being in love haasi mapiritsi ekupedza dzungu kana kurwadziwa nemudumbu kana kuti chii. Serious business ine commitment. So by the end of the day, kana iwewe ukapinda in a relationship where you are being bribed nekupuwa mari and what have you, how are you going to assess commitment? Number 2, ukatendera vanhu kukuabuse and devalue yourself, whether uri murume kana kuti uri mukadzi, zvinozoitika ndezvekuti izvo abuse inoramba ichienda and it becomes normal. Kana ikazoita normal manje, tinozoona taane consequences panika atasangana nayo. Chetatu chandoda kuti vazive ndechekuti we reap what we sow. So kana munhu ukafambidzana nemunhu ane kufamba kusinganyatsonzwisisiki, mangwana makuseni munomuka mahistory, you all lose. Zvakanaka kuti a relationship iterminatwe as fast as possible. Haikona iwewe kuzvitora sezvinonzi uri chipatara chinozorapa vanhu kuti vaite nani. Rega vanorapwa kumwe, iwe utore vakarapika kare. Why? Because zvinodhura kuvhura a system yekuti uri kurapa mapenzi iwe usiri qualified. We need to be serious neupenyu, and the first appearance of evil we must start running.
Fazi, your final words to the people of Zimbabwe, young men and women who are in relationships, even those who are married.
Okay, for those that are married, people rarely change, but some do change. So I think to seek help for your partner, muonesana kuti mufamba nenzira ipi. Kana uchiona kuti hazvichaiti, zviri nani kusiya pane kuzoti tozokudimba mangwana. This is also for the people that are in relationships not yet married. You have to seek help or report to the police, kana abuswa or something, because that's a toxic relationship. You should report to the police and also seek help for yourself, because kana abuswa, sometimes it will get to your head and you think that's normal in a relationship. Because when you go out to in the next relationship, you should just seek help.
Ascom, as we conclude, there's an issue that I just thought about, the issue of stalking. Chitera your every move, wafamba, waenda kupi, wadi. Do we have laws that speak to stalking in Zimbabwe? Because this may put my life in danger. Do we have laws that speak to that? If so, how do we get help?
Certainly, Yvonne. I want to urge, couples, people who are in relationships, to report. The Criminal Law Codification Reform Act, Chapter 9.23 is very clear. It is a criminal offense to be stalking somebody, or even to hire, like what we have been hearing, that the people were now being hired. Some neighbors were being offered money to say, can you monitor Fadzai for me and report? Or even, going to the extent of hacking somebody's cell phone. That's a criminal offense. So I want to urge Zimbabweans, please report so that the law can take its course. And also, where somebody issues threats, do not take these threats for granted. If somebody says, I'm going to kill you, or if somebody says, I'm going to attack you, report so that investigations can be conducted. And also, if the person is in possession of firearm, report so that the firearm can be withdrawn.
Thank you very much for having joined us on Inside Out today. It's very unfortunate that we've run out of time. I'll talk to my producers. Hopefully, just hopefully maybe tomorrow you guys will come back and we'll continue where we've left off. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having joined us on Inside Out today, the issue of love and guns, violence in relationships. Are you able to identify when you're being abused? Are you able to identify when you're in a toxic relationship? Do you know the steps to take when you're being abused? Do you know when it is the right time for you to leave a toxic relationship? Those are some of the questions that we've tried answering today on Inside Out. You're free to give us your views and comments on our ZBC News Online platform, as well as our ZBC News Online Twitter page at ZBC News Online. Until we meet again, hopefully next week. Pleasant viewing.